Back when I was but a wee baby artist, just starting to seriously improve my art making skills, I looked for places online to share my work and to commune with all the nice and wonderful internet peoples. And, like many a young preteen artist from the late 2000s to early 2010s, I flocked to DeviantArt, where I sustained no long-lasting trauma from the hundreds of untagged kink art that showed up on my homepage every day. Now, for those unfamiliar, DeviantArt is an online art site that launched in the year 2000 with the intended purpose of being an online art gallery where people could foster communities with other artists and share their work. Now, there's a lot that can, and has, been said on DeviantArt. It's many eccentricities. But this video isn't about that. In fact, DeviantArt isn't anywhere near the focus of this video. But it is where I became familiar with art cringe, as many of the user-generated content from the site became meme fodder over the years for just how ugly, bad, and cringy a lot of people online found a lot of this work to be, to the point that the cringe attaches itself to the legacy of the site itself. And it's that art cringe, its history, cringe culture, online culture in general, and who even decides what good art is that I actually want to talk about. But before we get into all of that, my name is Cher, and this is my art and commentary space. If you're new here, howdy. Feel free to check out my previous videos and see if you vibe with any of it. And if you're returning, hello, welcome. Always a pleasure to see you again. I hope you all enjoyed this fairly brief deep dive into the evolution of art cringe and what makes good art. Oh, and hey, if you're in a silly and goofy mood and want to do something that's really silly and goofy, you can turn this into a drinking game. Take a shot every time I say cringe. But also that was a joke and don't do it because I don't want to be liable for any organ damage you sustain while watching this video. Okay, I think that covers my legal. Let's get into it. Cringe, or cringe culture, is a phenomenon that many of us have some degree of familiarity with, but for those of us still blissfully unaware or are just looking for a definition, cringe culture is, as defined by our trustworthy source and bestie, Urban Dictionary, a culture started on the internet of making fun of people and or insulting them by calling them cringy or cringe, and this next part's pretty interesting, for doing something which does not harm or somehow insult anyone nor anything. It's interesting to note that the tone of this entry in particular, as well as the other top entries on the site, take a more negative stance towards it. One that, as we can see from the entries listed, shows the more recent shift in perspective of cringe culture, content, and its negative effects. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. Just note all this for later. But now that we have a working definition for the purpose of this video, we can use it to better understand how it then relates to art criticism. Because I feel that much of art cringe criticism has at least some foundation in the perennial debate between high and low art and who gets to decide what good art is. In an article I found on the subject, the writer Matt Plesher questions the usefulness of the distinctions, and he notes how people tend to classify the two. High art is appreciated by those with the most cultivated tastes. Low art is for the masses, accessible and easily comprehended. Put into a modern context, high art is the skillfully rendered illustration of your favorite anime waifu, and low art is, I don't know, one of those computer-generated ahegao line NFTs. Oh, and let me know if you'd like me to make a video on NFTs, because man, do I have a lot to say on the subject. But back to the topic. Plesher also made a helpful diagram on how high and low art are valued, and it's clear to see how easily our perceptions of high or low art fall into classist sentiments. And that's largely because our traditional concepts of high art developed in the 18th century and were the culture of the intellectual elite, as high art was meant to challenge and evoke strong emotions and philosophical ideas within the viewer, in addition to upholding classical standards of aesthetic beauty. Unsurprisingly, these distinctions adhere to Western ideals of beauty and philosophy, and it's still a way that some people approach art and art criticism. Oh, and I'd be remiss not to mention that many works considered high art are those done by cis white men, and they also contribute the most to galleries. And look, I have statistics to back this claim. In a study conducted by a group of mathematicians, statisticians, and art historians at Williams College, the researchers surveyed the collections of 18 major US museums to quantify the gender, ethnic, and racial composition of the artists represented in their collections. The study's result revealed that 85.4% of the works in all major US museums belong to white artists, and 87.4% are by white men. African American artists have the lowest share with just 1.2% of the works. Asian artists total to 9%, and Hispanic and Latino artists constitute only 2.8% of the artists. And I know what you're thinking. Oh no, another video where you have to hear about how white supremacy tainted almost every facet of Western society, including art and culture. Yes, welcome to my channel. Theatrics aside, I mention all this because our ideas of good art don't exist in a vacuum. We've been intentionally primed to hold the works of white men in higher esteem than works from marginalized communities. Oh, and don't think that art cringe is a modern concept either. Let's not pretend like Miss Kitsch didn't walk in her hot pink flamingo Cupid doll heels so pseudo-anime furry art could run. But I'd love to do a video on kitsch art one day, though. All that said, these distinctions are also made for other reasons, one of which is that being able to identify what is good art fills us with a sense of superiority. Art cringe therefore reinforces that we have good taste. And not only do we have good taste, but we must put people in their place when they make distasteful art. So when you combine that sense of superiority with the overwhelming need to be right, a narrow view of good art, and the anonymity of people on the internet leading to foregoing empathy for people on the other side of the screen, you start to get a wave of immature people who need to assert online that they have the right opinions on art, and that then leads into the creation of art cringe commentary online. Art Cringe Commentary, in its more modern context, started off as a series of blog posts and subreddits that mainly pulled from art sites like the aforementioned DeviantArt, with the main goal of ripping apart the work and, as an unfortunate consequence, humiliating the artist who made it. And with the nature of things on the internet lasting essentially forever, with each new reader of each new post, artists on the receiving ends of such posts would be reintroduced to a new wave of mean-spirited comments on their pages. Many of these kinds of blogs featured works done by kids or inexperienced artists, and sometimes the negative reactions to the work would drive them to either stop posting or to stop drawing entirely. But once cringe commentary moved to YouTube, I think that's where it really came into its own, commercially and artistically. There was an explosion of cringe commentators and videos, and I think the peak of this cringe era was maybe around 2014 or 2015. I don't know, that's when I really started to notice it, and I definitely saw a lot more videos about cringe in general come out around that time in the same vein as Sleepy Is Here and other contemporaries. From this golden age of cringe commentary spawned the popular cringe compilation videos, which were videos that stitched together images or other media that the poster deemed weird or plain bad or cringy. In regards to art, a lot of these art cringe compilations included things like animation memes, which are trends in the animation community where an animator makes an animation of a character, usually an OC, set to a clip from a song. Many of this found content, again, was done by young teens and inexperienced artists, although art that was considered too SJW-like, aka art created by those of marginalized identities like women, people of color, queer people, etc., were often also targets of these compilations. The accessibility of these videos led to a lot more harassment leveled to the feature creators than the blogs ever did. And that in turn shaped a new kind of online culture that mocked the sincere and genuine attitudes towards liking cringe or just things in general, and favored the edgy and sarcastic. This shift affected the ways that some people interacted with their interests online, and had unintended negative effects that we will get into in this next section. While looking for articles to reference for this video, I stumbled upon the article Kids Just Want to Have Fun by Claudia Rodriguez, where she notes that she was afraid to show interest in things like Minecraft or Steven Universe during this era because of the disdain that people online seemingly had for it. And I think that, for me, growing up as the concept of cringe was rising was kind of difficult. I had this fear when I was younger that I might one day be featured on these blogs or video compilations because my art wasn't super skilled, or I too had interests that were largely considered cringy. It was hard not to internalize that negativity and try to adopt a sort of disaffected, aloof, and above-it-all attitude. And I don't think that I was alone in this. I remember this brief era online where it was only acceptable to like or enjoy things if you did it ironically. Any genuine appreciation for anything was openly mocked for its sincerity. Truly a miserable time to be alive in. I also suspect that another effect of cringe culture on the art community was the rapid development of skill amongst young artists. Granted, this is in addition to young teens having more resources and better access to technology and art tutorials than previous generations did, but considering how much art cringe commentary relied on bullying kids for their art, I wouldn't put it past some people to master the techniques faster as a way of trying to avoid being targets of cringe commentators. Thankfully, this era was as brief as this section of this video, as people started to call out just how harmful cringe culture is, and we started to see a breakaway from the cringe mindset to a new era. Look, folks, I'm sorry to be the one who has to announce this, but cringe is dead. Cringe remains dead, because we have killed it. In recent years, there's been a major backlash to cringe culture. Phrases like cringe is dead or I am cringe but I am free have come to rise as popular ideologies and slogans that push back against the judgment of cringe culture. I think that after recognizing how much damage cringe culture was actually doing to kids and those marginalized identities and neurodivergent people and so on and so forth, that many of us have started embracing our interests freely. And to relate this back to art cringe, creating and posting whatever we want. I've seen a lot more art in the way of nostalgia posting, especially in regards to old TV shows that were considered cringe of the past that we freely loved in our youth being openly embraced again. And you know, if openly embracing your thirst for Chris McLean via Thirst Trap fan art is wrong, then I don't want to be right. That all to say that we are now in a time in the internet where it's okay to actually like things genuinely because being sincere isn't cringy, actually. I know, what a concept. Okay, so end of the video. What's the conclusion here? Are we just not allowed to dislike art? Can I not make fun of things anymore? God, this generation is so soft. Okay, well, listen, before you internally combust, yeah, it's okay to not like every piece of art you come across. You don't need me to tell you that. And you know, there are plenty of art styles that I dislike. that in the interest of not burning bridges, I won't name. And, yeah, sometimes I have a little giggle fest with my friends about art we find weird, but I don't know, I don't go and cyberbully the artists online about it. So maybe the lesson here is don't cyberbully. Don't be an asshole? Unless it's towards one of those really weird and unfunny far-right comics. I think it's pretty cringe to tolerate bigotry, actually. Oh, and stop being mean to kids. Guys, please, come on. It's weird to have to pick on them to inflate your own sense of superiority. And to answer the question of what makes good art, or who decides it really, like all things, there's a lot of factors and indoctrination to consider. But what really matters is what you as an individual find good. If you like it, then it's good. You don't have to let people change your mind about it. Unless it's like one of those weird NFT monkey guys. That's like objectively bad art, I think. Okay, I think we'll end our discussion with that here. I know this video is like a week later than usual, but I'm trying not to burn out too quickly on making these, so uploads might be a little irregular from time to time. But aside from that, I want to know what you think about the shift in public perception of cringe these days. Do you have any personal experience on being on either the receiving end or the person who would make these videos? I don't know, do you have any general opinions on it yourself about cringe culture, and especially art cringe, as that's what I'm focusing on today? Let me know all your thoughts down in the comments, and make sure to, of course, subscribe to my beautiful and lovely channel. Maybe follow my Twitter or Instagram if you feel so inclined and you want to know when my next video is about to drop, or if you want to participate in some of my Twitter polls, because usually I'll do that, and you can partake in you can help me decide what to cover in my next video. I also have links to my Ko-fi if you feel so inclined to tip me, as well as my INPRNT shop if you'd like to order some of my art prints. Okay, yeah, I think that's it. So, goodbye, and I will see you all in the next video. Hey guys, just wanted to pop in before the end of this video to mention that we just hit 100 subscribers, over 100 subscribers on this account, which, might not seem like a lot, but it does tell me that there are more people than just my friends who are watching the things that I make. And I think a large part of that is due to the alternative black girl video that I posted about 2 months ago. And it really makes me happy that a video that I spent a lot of time researching and editing is getting a lot of attention, and even in these few videos that I've made, it is the one that I put the most amount of work into, so it's really encouraging to see the overwhelmingly positive reception that it's gotten. And I do read all the comments, and sometimes I don't have the social battery to respond to all of them, but just know that I am looking and I am appreciating what you guys all have to say on that. And I'd love to make like more heavily researched videos like that. And I am working on those in the background while I get these lighter, lightly researched videos out, because there are subjects that I like to talk about. It just doesn't take as much research as the alternative black girls one. And I'd love to get like opinions on videos I can do in the future that are that heavily researched, though just note that it would take a long time to get those out. And I also wanted to mention, since my birthday, the old dirty 2030 is coming up, all I really want to ask is that you guys just continue to share any of my videos that you like with other people. I think that's all I really wanted to announce. If you guys are continuing to stick with me, thank you so much. It means a lot. I've been really wanting to do YouTube for a few years, but I just never knew what my niche was exactly, and I'm still kind of figuring that out, but it's nice to see that people are actually watching and enjoying the things that I'm putting out. So I'm not going to take up any more of your time. Thanks again for subscribing and watching this video. That's me. That's it.